speaker number 1.
Yes. Alipio.
Alipio de Vieira. Christmas Story Weave. Christmas Story Weave, Alipio de Vieira.
Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, this is a story weave. It is an interweaving of 3 stories around a central holiday theme. So let us begin. Once upon a midnight clear, there was a child's cry. A blazing star hung over a stable, and wise men came bearing birthday gifts. We haven't forgotten that night down through the long centuries. We celebrated with stars on Christmas trees, with the sound of bells, and with gifts, especially with gifts. I give you a book, you give me a tie. Uncle Henry has always needed a winter coat, and Aunt Martha, well, she can use with a new blender. Oh, we forget no one, adult or child. All the stockings are filled. All that is, save one. One Christmas Eve, a good friend of mine, Steve, came out of his office in Chicago. And it was a typical Chicago winter, snow falling, a cold, bitter wind coming off of Lake Michigan. And as he hurried to his car, he saw the street urchin walking around his car, admiring the shiny new exterior. And as Tommy came up, the street urchin looked up at him and said, "Hey, mister, is this your car?" Tommy nodded. "Yes, my older brother gave it to me for Christmas as a gift." Street urchin said, "Wow, he gave this to you as a gift? Boy, I sure wish." Now, Tommy knew what the kid was going to wish for. He was going to wish that he had an older brother just like that. But when the kid replied, Tommy was shocked. For instead, the kid said, "Boy, I sure wish I could be a brother just like that." Tommy rocked on his heels, blurted out, "Hey kid, would you like to come in my car for a ride?" The kid nodded, and they jumped in and took off. After a few minutes, the kid turned to Tommy and said, "Hey mister, could you drive me home?" Tommy nodded. He knew what the kid wanted. He wanted to show off to all his friends and neighbors, shining up in this brand new car. But you see, Tommy would be proved wrong once again. The kid motioned. The car turned up the street and pulled up in front of the shabby-looking apartment building. The kid jumped out of Tommy's car, ran up the steps, and disappeared. I have a close friend, Susie. She teaches kindergarten class in this really poor school district. Now, she knew her kids didn't have much in terms of material possessions, so she asked them to draw a picture of something they could be grateful for. And all the kids eagerly went to their desks and started drawing with their crayons. And as Susie walked around, she looked down and saw the typical pictures of food and toys. But when she came to Charles' desk, she was amazed. For on it, Charles had drawn a crude drawing of the outline of a hand. But whose hand? All the kids gathered round and started guessing. "Why, it's a hand of Santa who brings the toys." No, a little girl said. "It's the hand of God who brings us food." After a few seconds, the kids went back to the desk and back to their own drawings. And Susie, intrigued, came over, looked down, and whispered to Charles whose hand it was. Charles, shy, squirmed in his seat, couldn't look his teacher in the eye, and said, "It's your hand, teacher." It was then that Susie remembered that she had often taken Charles, a shy, introverted kid, often by the hand during recess, for Charles had no friends. And Susie had done this for other shy, lonely children in her classes before, and she didn't think anything of it. But you see, to Charles, This had meant everything. So the kid jumped out of Tommy's car, ran up the steps, and disappeared. After a few minutes, Tommy heard the kid coming back, but he wasn't alone. He was carrying in his arms his crippled younger brother. He placed his younger brother on the stoop, squeezed in next to him, and pointed to Tommy's car. See, buddy, it's just like I told you. His older brother bought it for him for free. And one day, when I grow up, I'm going to buy one just like that for you, so you can see all the wonderful things in the Christmas windows. Tommy, with eyes streaming down his cheeks, stepped out of the car, came over, and gently picked up the crippled younger brother and gently placed him in the front seat. And the shiny-eyed older brother jumped in, and then all three of them took off for a memorable holiday ride. All the stockings are filled. All that is, save one. And you know, we have even forgotten to hang it up. A stocking for the child born on Christmas. It's his birthday, you know. Let us never forget that. So let us each gather and put in his share. Loving kindness, warm hearts, and the outstretched hand of tolerance. All the shining gifts that create peace on earth. Mr. Toastmaster.
Speaker number 2, Judy Van Arsdale. Tech the halls. Tech the halls. Judy Van Arsdale.
Fellow Toastmasters, ladies and gentlemen, festive beings, and honorary members of the smartphone clubs, gather around me as I share with you my tale of holiday cheer, technological twists, and the unintentional comedy that ensued in my attempt to spread joy through the wonders of autocorrect. Plus the night before Christmas, and all through the house, not a creature was stirring, except for my smartphone, determined to add its own spin to the holiday cheer. You see, every year I eagerly await the joyous task of sending heartfelt Christmas greetings to my friends and family. And little did I know that my smartphone had plans of its own. I started with a simple Merry Christmas to all, intending to spread the warmth of the season. But my autocorrect in this smartphone had different plans. And my message read, Merry Crisis to all. Crisis? I assure you, my intention was far from initiating a holiday disaster. My smartphone, however, seemed to believe that holiday cheer required a bit of chaos and even crisis. Undeterred, I attempted a classic Christmas carol, hoping to serenade my loved ones with the timeless melody of Silent Night. Little did I know, my smartphone had a different time and mind. The message sent was jumbled rendition of Violent Night. Oh dear, I certainly did not intend to transform a peaceful night into a rowdy one, but my smartphone did. Next on my list was a heartfelt wish for joy, love, and festive celebrations. Yet, my smartphone had its own interpretation, and the message conveyed the desire for joy, love, and ferocious celebrations. Ferocious celebrations? Last time I checked, my Christmas gatherings involved laughter and love, not wild animals taking center stage. As my holiday festivities continued, I attempted to organize a gathering with friends, suggesting we meet for a cup of festive cheer. Little did I anticipate that my smartphone had a penchant for turning festive cheer into festive beer. Suddenly, my innocent invitation to a warm gathering took on a spirited turn. And I don't even drink beer or any alcoholic beverages. And my friends chuckled at my invitation. But the pinnacle of my autocorrect adventures came when I attempted to send a heartfelt wish for a happy new year with prosperity. You can probably guess what happened. Yes, it happened. My smartphone, the ever mischievous companion, transformed my message into a wish for a happy new year filled with posterity. I must confess, I wasn't quite prepared for the laughter that ensued. Yes. Here I stand, a messenger of Christmas mirth, sharing with you the unintentional comedy that unfolded when technology and holiday greetings collide. I discovered that sometimes the best holiday memories and the best present of all are the ones filled with laughter, even if they come with a touch of technological tomfoolery. Mr. Toastmaster.
Our next speaker number 3, David Flores. My teen mother, David Flores.
Fellow Toastmasters, welcome guest. My mom, the teen. If you recall, maybe a few years ago, there used to be this public service announcement would say, do you know where your teen children are tonight? Having a teenage daughter, I try to keep as close to tabs as I could on what she did at the evenings, where she would go, who she was with. So I always kept a tight rein on her behavior. My mother, on the other hand, brought a whole new light to teenage behavior. You see, what happened is after my father had passed away, my mother met a younger man. He's about early 70s. She was mid 70s. This gentleman was 180 degrees to what my father was. My father was hardworking, didn't drink, didn't smoke. It was housework and church. Not a lot of excitement going on there. My mom's new friend, though, was party, dancing, gambling, horse track, Indian casinos. So there was a whole new world that my mom was exploring with this man. But she's an adult. I figured she can behave responsibly. There's nothing to worry about. Little did I know the chaos she would cause down the road. There was a morning that she had to go to the hospital for some minor surgery. She'd be in for maybe a day and be out. So my responsibility was to take the day off from work, and I would drive her to the hospital for her surgery. So early in the morning, around 7 o'clock, I get a phone call, and my mom says, are you coming? I says, yes, I'm on my way. I'll be there shortly. We'll be at the hospital by 8 o'clock like you need to be. So I get to the house. I pick up my mother. She gets in the car. We drive down the road, and I notice she's starting to fall asleep. It's like, okay, no big deal. We get to the hospital to start to check in. We're at the receptionist's desk getting the information. My mom is sitting there, I'm helping answer questions. And she starts nodding off. And the receptionist says, is your mom okay? Oh yeah, I think she's fine. I think she probably just didn't get much sleep last night because she was nervous about today's surgery. It's understandable. We get her checked in. She goes to the room. She's in the room where they're going to start doing the surgery. And that's when all heck breaks out. Evidently, what had happened is my mom, I found out later, had gone out dancing, had gone to the racetrack. Then they proceeded to go to the Indian casino. She called me that morning when she got home from being out all night long partying before her surgery. That's why she kept falling asleep and nodding off everywhere we went. But the bad part was I have the doctor and the anesthesiologist coming down the hall wanting to talk to me. Evidently, the doctor has a habit before surgery to talk to his patients, assure them they'll be fine, kind of explain how it's going to go on, not a big deal. But when he walked into the room to talk with my mom, she was sound asleep. And when my mom falls asleep, she is asleep. There's no waking her up. The house could fall down, she'd be asleep. The doctor gets upset and looks at the anesthesiologist. I thought I told you not to do this until I have a chance to talk to her. Don't put her down yet. And he's like, I haven't even touched her yet. Well, she's not even awake. She's totally out. You did this. Now you've messed up my whole process. And he keeps arguing. So they get in a big argument about it. Come down the hall wanting to talk to me. Is there something about your mother we need to know? Why is she so asleep? Does she have some problems? Is she having issues? I go, no, See, growing up with a bunch of brothers, one of the things we learn is we don't rat each other out. I didn't have the nerve to tell the doctors that, well, mom had been out all night partying. She was dancing. She went to the racetrack. She went to the Indian casino and gambled all morning, and then just now came in for her surgery. I don't think that would have gone over real well with the doctors. So I kind of just pushed it aside, said, I think really she's just tired because she didn't get much sleep last night. I know that I talked to her earlier in the day, which was a lie, that she was nervous about the surgery and she wasn't really sure she wanted to go through with it. And I kept encouraging, Mom, you'll be okay. But not knowing what had happened, I didn't say anything other than the fact that once I found out what had happened, that it wasn't going to go over well. So the lesson I learned more than anything else is that even though most of us probably don't have parents that we have to worry about, but for those who do, remember, parents can be just as bad as teenagers when they decide to do their second childhood, but the second childhood doesn't have any parental guidance, so they can get as crazy as they want. But when I found out what my mother had done and the chaos she had caused, I finally realized that now I have 2 teenage children I have to watch out for, or else I'll be answering a lot of questions to a lot of different people. Mr. Toastmaster.
Our next speaker is, maybe you want to start getting hooked up here while I'm announcing you. Richard Snyder, the Fountain of Youth. The Fountain of Youth. Richard Snyder.
Raise your hand if you found the Fountain of Youth. Well, I hope after my speech tonight, I inspire you to all go out and find the Fountain of Youth. As I look out over the audience, I can see that some of you are struggling with the same signs of middle age that I am. You know the signs: receding hairline, memory loss. I can't even remember all the other signs. But it was my 60th year on this earth that inspired me to make a change. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, yes, it was turning the big 6-0 that inspired me to go out and find the Fountain of Youth. I remember reading as a high school student about Ponce de Leon and how he went to Florida to find the Fountain of Youth. And so I set out to Florida. But when I got there, all I found were elderly people with white and gray hair. How demoralizing, I thought. I must be the youngest person in the entire state. I'll never find the Fountain of Youth here. Well, I must have stuck out like a sore thumb, because it wasn't long after arriving that an elderly gentleman approached me. Sonny, are you the one they sent to teach us how to vote? Vote? Yeah, you remember several years ago we had the hanging chads and the counts and the recounts, and I lost count of all the recounts. Are you going to teach us how to vote? We have a big election coming up next year. No, I'm looking for the fountain of youth. Well, he looked at me as if I must have been off my rocker. Well, come back in 10 years. But I was determined, and so I continued. And it wasn't long after that I saw it. A large sign, Ponce de Leon's Fountain of Youth. I hurried in that direction, and just then it happened. Coming the opposite direction, right toward me, was Hurricane Charlie. I was blown off my path into Hokey Pokey, Okefenokee, whatever that blasted lake was. It was all I could do to get out of the lake before the gators got me. People that can't boat, hurricanes, gators, I've had it. I'm going back to California. The following Monday, I was back at work lamenting how close I had come to finding the Fountain of Youth. As I looked at my students, my special needs students, during lunch and recess, it suddenly occurred to me, I was surrounded by the Fountain of Youth. That great philosopher turned baseball player, Yogi Berra, once said, you can observe a lot just by watching. So over the next few weeks, I watched my students and have come up with the following 3 observations about staying young. Number 1, be childlike. Not childish, but be childlike. When I look in the mirror, I see a middle-aged man with a receding hairline. Well, that's an easy fix. I just put on a wig. As a child, I used to take a Dr. Seuss lunchbox to school. Well, as an adult, I take a Dr. Seuss Cat in the Hat lunchbox to work. A clear sign that I have kept in contact with the child in me. Number 2, make life an adventure. I'm not talking about the kind of adventure I had in Florida with hurricanes and gators. I'm talking about making every day count. Why, every day I take my lunchbox to work is an adventure. I never know what my wife's going to pack for me. Let's find out what she packed today. Peanut butter and jelly sandwich. An apple. We all know an apple a day helps keep the doctor away. Chocolate pudding for lots of energy. And fruit juice to wash it all down. What's this? Dear Snookums. That's private. Number 3, have fun and learn to laugh at life and laugh at yourself. It's been estimated that children laugh 500 times a day. Adults, on the other hand, laugh less than 50 times a day. Ever wonder how Jack Benny and Bob Hope lived to be 100? They never stopped laughing. My children arrived to school in the morning laughing and smiling, and I put them on the bus in the afternoon, and they're still laughing and smiling. Adults have forgotten how to play. When my students used to ask me, Mr. Snyder, come play with us, I'd look at their play clothes, and then I'd look at my work clothes, and I'd say, I'm sorry, I can't. But not anymore. Whether at work or play, I'm just seconds away from being ready to play. Hello, Toastmasters. If you want to stay young, remember these 3 points. Be childlike by tapping into the child within you. Make life an adventure. And remember to have fun and learn to laugh at yourself. For as that comedian, forever 39-year-old Jack Benny once said, age is strictly a mind over matter. You don't mind, it doesn't matter. And that's why in 30 years when they ask me, Richard, how old are you? Hey, I'm 50 years young.
What's that? How do I speak? I found the pouch in you. Where is it? It's here. And it's here. The secret to staying young is being young at heart.
Mr. Toastmaster.
And that figure is Dan Miguel. Title is title to be confirmed. Title to be confirmed. Dan Miguel.
Thank you. You hear me okay? All good? Have we got any TikTokers in the room tonight? TikTokers? No. Online? Well, that's that speech ruined, isn't it? Yeah, thank you. No. The reason I ask is there's a new trend on TikTok. It's called the teenage filter. And what you do is you look into the camera on your phone, you turn on the filter, and suddenly on the screen in front of you, there will be a living, breathing teenage version of you. Now, it was actually my teenage daughter, Emily, who introduced me to this. She said, "Dad, you should give it a go. It'll remind you what you look like before all the wrinkles." I said, "I'm sorry, Emily." I said, "I don't have wrinkles." I said, "I could pass for one of Harry Potter's classmates." She said, "Dad, I'm not being rude, but you're more like one of the frogs from Beatrix Potter." Anyway, I gave it a go. And the moment my 15-year-old self popped up on the screen, I smiled. But then I was hit by feelings of guilt and regret, like somehow I'd let down this young person. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters and guests, I'm 7 years old. I'm at school, and our teacher, Mrs. Fitzpatrick, an older lady who was forever engulfed in a cloud of her own cigarette smoke, she's lined us all up at the front of the class. And now she's going along the line, one by one, predicting what we will become when we grow up, like she's some kind of psychic. I remember she told 2 girls that they would grow up to become princesses. Fine. But then she told a poor chap called Barry Carmichael she could see him spending a lot of his adult life in prison, which was very cruel because they let him out after 15 years. And then it was my turn for the Mrs. Fitzpatrick treatment. Daniel McGill, Daniel McGill. Sounds like an author's name. Daniel, you're going to be a writer of great stories when you grow up. It was a brave prediction because I remember even that morning I'd managed to spell cat with 2 R's. But it turned out she was right. By the time I was 15, I was forever scribbling down short stories and dreaming of having them published one day. But then, well, you know, life sets in, doesn't it? I got a job, I had bills to pay, I put the pen down. And the author inside me just faded away. Until one day, a few years ago, I was actually in a Toastmaster meeting and somebody was giving a speech titled, "How to Write Your First Book in 12 Days. Yeah, I don't know which pathway it was from, maybe delusional strategies or persuasive insanity, one of them. It was probably the worst speech I'd ever heard. It was terrible. I know. But as I said in my evaluation later that evening, I said, that was one of the best speeches I've ever heard. Brilliant. And it awoke something in me. I decided that I did want to become an author. The problem was I didn't really have any good ideas. So I Googled, how do all the best writers get started? And the top result was for J.K. Rowling. It said that J.K., she'd been a single mum in her mid-20s. She was living off benefits, and she'd been rejected by book publishers time after time after time. And then one day, on a train from Manchester in the UK to London, she had the idea for Harry Potter. And I thought, what an inspirational story. I knew exactly what I needed to do. So I booked a train from Manchester to London. And it worked. It worked. I had a great idea. Emily, my daughter, was as cynical as ever. She said, Dad, I'm not being rude, but that idea wouldn't pass even a basic plagiarism test. Would you like to hear the idea? I think it's fine. Here we go. A bespectacled teenage girl heads off to boarding school where she discovers she has magical powers and an uncanny ability to play golf on a broomstick. Plagiarism. What plagiarism? I was ready to write. Got so excited. I bought myself a new pen. I created a vision board. I even booked myself a flight to Canada in the winter so I could go away and focus. Carpe diem, I said to myself, which is a Latin phrase that means fingers crossed. And I went. Day one was fabulous. I managed to write more than 1,000 words of the first Sally Trotter adventure. Day two, I'm about to start writing and I realize I've run out of wine. Now that should have been a red flag because I'd only opened the bottle for breakfast. There was a Costco across the street, but there was also a blizzard outside and it was minus 27 degrees. So I had two options. Option one, forget the wine, sit down at my desk and get on with my writing. Option two, head out into the blizzard and maybe die. Which option do you think I chose? The blizzard, yeah. What option two? I went with option three. I flew to Mexico. I spent the next 2 weeks passed out on a beach, and I haven't written a word since. Carpe tequila, which is a Latin phrase that means seize the hangover. I don't know if you agree, but for me, that's what being an adult's all about. It's about failing. It's about giving up. It's about being rejected. It's about spending too much time on TikTok, Tinder, and Twitter. It's about guzzling too much wine for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But most importantly, it's about always believing that all that can change at any moment. The next chapter isn't written yet. None of the chapters are written yet. The title of our lives is To Be Confirmed. And as the great Mrs. Fitzpatrick would always say to us, children, your future is like my bottle of water here. You've got no idea what's really in it. Thank you.
And one more important
Go
part
ahead.
of closing the evening, of course, will be to award these trophies.
Oh, yes, yes. Well, let me, let me hold off on doing that. Make sure, I'll get you these to put them in order. Make sure. They probably are, but
They
we'll
are.
put them in order.
Good.
Okay, and I have the
They're down there.
results. Everybody's on their edge. Yeah, you get to, this is which one? This is the first one, right? This is humorous.
Humorous.
Okay. And as his protocol, you start with second place first. And this is for second place for humorous. Our guest from across the stage, Dan. Last time we had to worry about trying to mail it to them, and when I found out it was $90, Thank you for participating.
We'll
Yeah.
have plates made.
And you will, yeah, we will mail you a plate, so you'll have your name on it. And as I said before, these are because of the generosity of others who contributed to their all recycled trophies. So they've been awarded in the past, and they're being awarded and reused for being environmentally conscious, aren't we? Anyway, speaker number in first place, the person who had to give recess for second three, Richard, come on down.